Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, our honorable ambassadors and precious lecturers and students. Welcome to 20th anniversary of EU Certificate Program of Konrad Adenauer Stiftung. First of all, I feel honored to be part of this event and honored to speak on the behalf of Konrad Adenauer Stiftung and express our warmest welcome to you and celebrate together this great event, again 20th anniversary of EU Certificate Program together. Welcome again. Maybe we ask questions to ourselves why the certificate program is so vital and so important. In order to understand the content of this reply, first of all, we should understand the aims of Konrad Adenauer Stiftung. The Konrad Adenauer Stiftung is committed to maintaining and achieving democracy, social market economy, and creating consensus and values between students, between lecturers and the diplomats, and conduct this program to engage students to European Union studies. So after these programs, these certificate programs, we see that there is an option, there is a way to conduct EU-Turkey bridge much more easily and engage students to European Union studies and work together, create a world together again, so we understand why these efforts are so meaningful. So every story has a beginning and every story has a hero at the same time. So first of all, I want to introduce you these heroes, both from Turkish parts and also the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung. First of all, I want to introduce you Professor Nail Alkan. He's the great guy that creates these programs and prepares the values and creating a consent between each side. Professor Dr. Mustafa Nail Alkan studied political science in Germany at the University of Bonn. He wrote his master's and doctoral thesis on German-Turkish relations. From 1990 to 1993, Mr. Alkan was PhD Fellow of the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung. Until 2005, he lectured at Ankara University, Department of International Relations. He also served there as a Deputy Director and Director of the Center for EU Studies. Since 2008, he has been teaching at Gazi University as a Professor of International Relations. Currently, Professor Alkan is the head of Department of International Relations. Since 2001, he has been in collaboration with Konrad Adenauer Stiftung Turkey on the European Union certificate programs. As I mentioned to you, he shows great contribution and efforts to build this certificate program. So kindly, I want to invite him to the stage in order to listen his speech. Please, Mr. Alkan. Sorry. Just the two small moments for us to show you short film related with EU certificate program, introduce you this program, and then we can listen our professor. Thank you.
Europe. There was a time when European nations did not cooperate but fought each other. Centuries of wars, conflicts instead of cooperation were the prevailing dynamics. After the tragedies of World War II, Europeans realized that they had to unite to create a lasting peace in Europe. Since then, the ideal of a united Europe has been considered one of the greatest peace projects in history. Today's European Union is a steadily evolving union providing peace, prosperity and freedom for its member states. Turkey has been closely linked to the EU since the Ankara Agreement of 1963. The EU-Turkey Customs Union and the accession process have made relations even closer. Konrad Adenauer, the first German Chancellor, one of the founding fathers of the EU and the name giver of our foundation, once said, "The unity of Europe was a dream of a few. It became a hope for many. Today, it is a necessity for all." Since 1985, the Konrad Adenauer Foundation Turkey has been working towards the goal of deeper integration of Turkey into the EU. With a long-standing EU certificate program, we promote knowledge, awareness and interest in the EU-Turkey relations across Turkey. Since the first event in Erzurum in 2001, the EU certificate program has reached over 20,000 people in over 80 universities across the country. We believe that the best way to maintain peaceful relations and mutual understanding between countries and pave the way for better relations in the future is to talk and learn from each other. We asked Turkish students, explain the European Union in one word.
Equality,
democracy,
supranational, sui generis,
freedom of movement,
united in diversity, commonwealth,
justice and fundamental rights,
protection of minority rights,
protection of rights,
order of the balance,
freedom and peace.
Welcome to our EU certificate program.
Now we can listen our precious professor's speech. Please, Professor, the floor is yours.
Açık mı? Tamam. His Excellency, Ambassador and Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs and Director of EU Affairs, Faruk Kaymakçı, His Excellency, Ambassador of the Federal Republic of Germany to Turkey, Jürgen Schulz, dear Walter, dear professors, colleagues, dear students. Welcome to the 20th anniversary of the EU Certificate Program. Today, it's a very special day for me because, as you can see, 2 days ago, I left the hospital after 3 weeks because of a health problem. But today, it's also a very special day for me because we are celebrating the 20th anniversary of the EU Certificate Program. 20 years ago, I had a dream. My dream was to establish the consciousness of the idea of the European Union in Turkey. 20 years ago, I was the director of an EU center at Ankara University, ATAUM. The aim of ATAUM was the education of public employees on the EU in Turkey. The participants have to come to Ankara for the EU courses. In that time, many students from other cities in Turkey told me that they also want to participate, but that they don't have the opportunity to stay the whole time in Ankara. They asked me whether I can find a solution for their problem. So did I. I find a solution. I decided for myself, if the students cannot come to Ankara, then I will go with the EU program to them. So we started our first program in October 2001 in Erzurum at Atatürk University. For our EU certificate program, we needed support, which we found at the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung Turkey. Therefore, I want to express my gratitude to the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung Turkey, which believed in this project and which supported us the last 20 years, and I hope the next 20 years. 2005, I ended my career at Ankara University, so we go on with our EU certificate program with Konrad Adenauer Stiftung Turkey and Tandem as partners. Tandem is the Turkish-German Association of Solidarity and Integration, of which I am the president. Since that time, we made 130 EU certificate programs, almost in whole Turkey, from west to the east, from north to the south. We trained in this 20 years time period more than 20,000 students. In these 20 years, I can say that the interest of the students about the EU has never decreased. Now, some words about the program. In our 5 days program, we inform the students about the history, the enlargement and deepening process of the European Union, about the organs of the EU, how the EU works, about foreign security policy, about environmental policy of EU and Green Deal, migration policy of EU, Turkey-EU relations, neighborhood policy, energy policy, and other topics. We try to renew and to update our program when it seems necessary. Our motto in this framework is, not everybody has to say yes to the European Union, but those who say yes to the European Union should say it with information and consciousness. Those who say no to the European Union should say it with information and consciousness. We give the information, they should decide themselves. Now, coming to the end, some words of thankness. First, I want to thank the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung Turkey. Then I want to thank the 130 universities for their interest and support. I want to thank our team from Konrad Adenauer Stiftung Turkey and Tandem. Without them, it would not be possible to organize the 130 programs. Thank you, Walter. Thank you, Yulden Hanım. Thank you, Aydan. Special thanks, who worked with me the last 10 years in this project. Thank you, Anastasia. Thank you, Zeynep Sude. I also want to thank all the professors for their support of the program. I know that there are some professors here, Çınar Hocam, Tuğrul Hocam, Levent Hocam, Sinem Hocam. Thank you very much. In this program, I am only a fraction. Our professors which supported me deserve a very large part of the success. Let me now end with a quotation of Konrad Adenauer. He said, "Our goal is that Europe will one day become a big common house of Europeans, a house of freedom." In this sense, thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Professor Alkan. I am inviting you, Davos seat, please, if possible. Davos seat. Okay. As Professor Alkan mentioned, we understand that the great efforts and great contributions we see under the certificate program, because as he mentioned, the engaging students, the Western world, and create vision for them is not an easy job. So it is the reason why I mentioned them as the heroes. And we have the other one, of course, from the other side, from Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, Walter Gloss. Let me introduce him for you. Walter Gloss has been an employee of the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung in various leading positions since 1988. Firstly, he started his career in political and public administration at the local level in a municipal administration. At Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, he was responsible for various managerial activities in the international section until 2015. He was the head of finance and project administration of the Department of European and International Cooperation. From 2016 to 2019, he was director of the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung in Albania. Since then, he is the director of Konrad Adenauer Stiftung in Turkey. And now I want to invite him to stage to make his great speech to us. Walter Gloss, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, dear Professor Sinem Kovac, for your kind introduction, and your dear Professor Alkan for your opening speech. Dear Ambassador Faruk Kamakche, Deputy Foreign Minister, dear Ambassador Jürgen Schulz, dear professors, dear ambassadors, dear guests, dear students, dear academics, and let's say, dear friends. It's my great pleasure and honor to welcome so many of you here and many more attending online to celebrate with us together the 20th anniversary of our EU certificate program. A lot of you know that Konrad Adenauer Stiftung very well. For the one who are the first time join our event, I will briefly explain who we are and what we do. The Konrad Adenauer Stiftung is a political foundation with projects in more than 126 countries, nearly 111 offices abroad and 18 offices in Germany. Konrad Adenauer Stiftung in Turkey began its work in 1985 after the initiative and agreement from 1983 of the former Turkish Prime Minister Turgut Özal and former German Chancellor Helmut Kohl. The focus of our work is to provide practical support to the Turkish demonstration and democratization and reform process, and thereby contribute of the harmonization of Turkish institutions to those of the European Union. An important goal in conducting these activities is to strengthen relations and promote political and economic dialogue, both between Turkey and Germany as well as between Turkey and the EU. To achieve this goal, we work collaboratively with numerous Turkish institutions that focus on a wide range of topics. To these ends, CAS Turkey sets up meetings between Turkish and German experts and politicians, as well as organizes discussions, events and field trips so that German members of parliaments and young politicians are able to meet in person with their Turkish counterparts. With our work, we contribute to ensuring and enhancing peace, freedom and prosperity in Europe and the world. In addition to the important topic of Turkish-EU integration process, our other topics in the context of German-Turkish relations are, of course, political dialogue, cooperation with the parliament, economic cooperation, migration, young people, security and defense policy, and the media. With the EU certificate program of CAS Turkey in cooperation with Tandem, we strengthen the Turkish-European relations and promote the interest of Turkish youth in European ideals and values through selected experts, even in the most remote places of Turkey. In doing so, we provide the participants of the free 5-day seminar not only with the knowledge about the EU, its institutions, functions, main policy and current issues, but also with the ideals and values that the European Union embodies. The first EU certificate program was initiated in Erzurum in 2001. Professor Alkan mentioned it. Since then, we have reached over 20,000 people in over 86 universities in over 60 cities across the country. Today, we are finalizing also the 130th EU certificate program, which we, CAS and Tandem, organized in cooperation with Bitlis Eren University and the community of model of United Nations of Ankara Hacı Bayram Veli University. Thank you for your collaboration and contribution, especially to the President Güzide Hanım and from Tandem Zeynep Hanım. Thank you so much. We believe that the best way to maintain peaceful relations and mutual understanding between countries and pave the way for better relations in the future is to talk to each other and exchange people to people. On this special occasion, we wanted to give our participants the chance to discuss together with important decision makers as our honorable guests today. We are delighted to welcome His Excellency Ambassador Jürgen Schulz, Ambassador of the Federal Republic of Germany to Turkey, and His Excellency Ambassador Faruk Kamakci, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs and Director of EU Affairs, to a tour d'horizon on EU-Turkey relations. Both the EU and Turkey have a crucial role to play in the face of Russia's war in Ukraine. This war is not only among Ukraine, is a war against European Union, its values, democracy, rule of law, rules-based order. Now, it is time to show the power which lies in our democracies. We must show the power of people. Almost 500 million of people has mobilized for Ukraine. The people of Europe are demonstrated against this war all across our union. And many of them have opened their homes for millions of Ukrainians who are flying their homes. This is the biggest migration influence since the Second World War. In this case, thank you especially to all countries that host refugees from Ukraine. I'm proud that EU countries showed a unity of purpose and implemented immediately heavy sanctions, which are the largest sanctions package in our union's history. Turkey made the impossible possible. With the Antalya Diplomacy Forum, Turkey brought the Russian and Ukraine foreign ministers together. Our sincerely congratulations. We appreciate the decisive role that Turkey has undertaken, especially in this difficult period as the guardian of the Montreux Convention, which regulates the passage of the Istanbul-Dardanelles Straits in the times of war. This brings me to the point to thank Deputy Minister Kamakci for his confirmation and his willingness to speak on the subject tonight. Dear Ambassador, thank you very much for this. And on this point, I would like to thank Ambassador Jürgen Schulz for his confirmation and his willingness to speak about EU-Turkey relations and Germany's perspective. Dear Ambassador, I would like to thank you as well very much for this. Minister Kamakci and Ambassador Schulz have both thankfully agreed to open themselves to a few of our questions after they have finished their speeches. The moderation of these questions and answers will be done by Associated Professor Dr. Sinem Kosomac. For this, I would like to give her my sincere thanks. Special thanks from my side, of course, I mentioned some people before, to my very dear colleague Anastasia Hanem for organizing this great event. Thank you so much, Anastasia Hanem. But now, I would to acknowledge and honor our partner and my very dear friend, Professor Nail Alkan, for 20 years cooperation and its valuable contribution to the EU certificate program. I would like to give you an award and a Konrad Adenauer medal to honor you. Dear Nail, thank you for the wonderful cooperation. Besides the EU certification program, we also developed our German-Turkish Youth Academy together, for which I thank you as well. The Youth Academy program will start next Monday morning, of course, at the German Embassy in Ankara, and on Monday afternoon we will be guests of Ambassador Kamakci at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs again. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your attention.
Now we can pass the second part of our event. I think that everybody excitedly waits for this part, the Third Horizon in EU-Turkey relations, because I want to make reference to the words of our Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Kaymakçı words. It's a long and thin road, the European Union and Turkey relationship. It contains several constraints, and it contains lots of disappointments and long historical relationships. At the same time, EU-Turkey relations contains disagreements, but on the other hand, this relationship also contains the mutual trust and long years relationships together, and solving problem together, creating a mutual ground, and engaging and giving response to international crises together. So we know that our strength is standing together, and we know that Germany is also one of the European Union's country, give agreed support to Turkey negotiation process. During this process, we live lots of crises and related with many issues. And lots of time we feel the support of Germany in terms of giving its huge support to our country. So, especially like the words of Walter Gross, the Ukrainian war show us how it's important to standing together and giving response to crisis, international war environment together, and how Turkey plays an important and crucial role in order to bind again Eastern and Western world. In terms of in Antalya Diplomacy Forum, we see together how Turkey played a mediation position and create a message between the East and Western world. So in order to discuss together, understanding together, and maybe finding a new way or revision together, I want to open this Third Horizon part. And first of all, of course, I want to introduce you our precious ambassadors. Let me begin with Jürgen Schulz, and let me shortly give information from his biography. Ambassador Jürgen Schulz joined the Foreign Service in 1991. After serving in the German embassy in Kyrgyzstan and the political section in International Staff of NATO in Brussels, he worked in the Foreign Office and the Federal Chancellery in Berlin. In office, he initially worked in the Western Balkans unit and the Iraq staff before becoming deputy head of unit for European security and defense policy and the head of unit in the Federal Chancellery. Subsequently, he became deputy political director and commissioner for security policy at the German Foreign Office. Prior to his assignment in Ankara, Schulz was ambassador and deputy permanent representative of Germany to the United Nations from 2017 to 2020. At these years, he was also vice chair of the organizing committee of the UN Peacebuilding Commission, vice chair of Economic and Social Committee, and chair of the Libya Sanctions Committee. And then, let me introduce you a brief biography of our Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs and Director of EU Affairs, Ambassador Faruk Kaymakçı. Faruk Kaymakçı worked at the Turkish Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Ankara at the Directorate General for the Balkan States, International Economic Organizations, Policy Planning, and European Union. Abroad, he served at the Turkish Embassy in Tripoli, the NATO Senior Civilian Representative Office in Kabil, and 3 times at the Turkish Permanent Delegation to the European Union in Brussels. Subsequently, he served as the Consul General of Turkey in Basra. In 2013, he was appointed as the Ambassador of Turkey to Iraq. After that, Mr. Kaymakçı was appointed as the Permanent Representative of Turkey to the European Union until 2017. 1 year later, he became the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, Director for EU Affairs. Kaymakçı is a holder of the NATO Medal for his service in Afghanistan, and he was selected one of the 3 alumnus of the year 2007 of the College of Europe. Now I want to invite our honorable ambassadors to the stage and Davos seats, if possible, to start our discussion, our talks related with the Turkey-European Union relations. Thank you very much. Before starting this meeting, Konrad Adenauer Stiftung wants to present a medal and plates to our honorable ambassadors. Yes, please, Mr. Gloss.
Please take a seat for 1 minute. Dear Minister, Ambassador Kaymakci, I worked for the Konrad Adenauer Foundation in Turkey for 3 years now. Whenever we have invited you to our events and to meetings with politicians and experts, you have accepted our invitation in the majority of the cases. This is not a matter of course. So today I would like to thank you again from the bottom of my heart and to express our gratitude. I would like to present you today with our Konrad Adenauer medal. Thank you for having so much understanding for our work and for being there when we need you. Dear Ambassador Schulz, what I have just said for Ambassador Kaymakci, of course, also applies in full to the German embassy in Ankara. We enjoy an extraordinarily good cooperation, characterized by mutual understanding and respect. I would like to express my sincere thanks for this and also present you with our Konrad Adenauer medal as an expression of our gratitude. Thank you so much for your cooperation.
Thank you very much. The way of thinking and revision all these problems and try to make another way for us, another way for EU and Turkey. So let's talk together, and I know that it's also a chance for our students because after the speech you can ask your questions to our ambassadors directly. But first of all, let's hear their words, their precious words together. First of all, I want to give microphone to Ambassador Schulz in order to listen his inputs. Please, the floor is yours. Of course, if you want. Thank you.
Well, dear Walter Gloos, dear Professor Alkan, dear Deputy Minister, dear Farouk, dear professors, students, dear ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor to be here today with you, and it's a great honor to be here at this very occasion. We have already heard a lot about the last 20 years and the program of 20 years. I find it personally quite impressive that more than 20,000 students have been going through this program, and I would like to also express my sincere thanks to you and the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung and everybody who is involved in this for making this possible. I think this is a great way to familiarize students who are interested in the European Union with the Union and its policies, practices, and that's a wonderful way to promote this cooperation. Now, I've been asked to do a short tour d'horizon in 10 minutes or so. Well, if we talk about EU-Turkey relations, I have to say this will not be complete, since EU-Turkey relations, of course, cover a broad array of issues. So let me just say a very few things, and all the other things that you have missed and want to discuss, maybe we can get to in our discussion. First of all, let me say from a German point of view, Turkey is a partner and a neighbor of huge strategic importance for Germany. This is very important to start with, and this importance is due to many, many reasons. So Germany has a strong interest in further strengthening ties with Turkey across the board, bilaterally, internationally, and of course also including the relations between the EU and Turkey. And on this relationship, the EU-Turkey relationship, Germany has been working hard to achieve concrete progress in further strengthening that relationship. And I'm pleased to note that while we had some difficulties in the last 2 years too, my impression is that ties have been gradually improving, particularly since, let's say, last summer, and that is very welcome from a German perspective. This is very positive. Let me briefly comment on 3 broad areas at hand for the future cooperation that lies ahead of us. And I would like to start with the issues many of you have already mentioned, and that's the Russian war against Ukraine. This is a very important event, development that leads to tectonic changes in the world and also in international relations. And I think we cannot overestimate the importance of those changes. And we are very grateful that we and the Turkish government are on the same page on this conflict. Turkey, like us, works to uphold the principles of the United Nations Charter and the basic principles of the OSCE. And within the UN, Turkey has been a key actor and actively engaged in drafting resolutions condemning the Russian aggression against Ukraine. And we are very grateful for that. In recent months, Germany has left no stone unturned to find peaceful solutions to the Russia crisis through diplomatic channels. And we continue to explore options for diplomatic solution every single day, just like our Turkish friends too. And we are grateful that we are here on the same side of the aisle. Those who are against this brutal illegal war should stand together to the greatest extent possible. And in that vein, we also would like to encourage Turkey to consider aligning itself with the sanctions against Russia that the European Union has agreed on. For the success of our joint endeavors to stop this aggression, the successful implementation of sanctions will be pivotal too. We are very much convinced of that. And yes, as these are tectonic changes to the European security order, I think more thought should be given to ever closer cooperation also in the field of security, also with Turkey, and I think we should also focus in our thinking and our discussions much more on that in the months to come. Let me turn to the areas of cooperation that are among the most important ones in this relationship between the EU and Turkey. I do not want to go through all the various areas, but just to pinpoint a few that seem to be very crucial. One of them certainly is our cooperation on issues concerning migration. We are again very grateful to Turkey for its hospitality, the hospitality Turkey has been extending to refugees and migrants for the last 11 years or so in an extraordinary fashion. And we think it's very good that we cooperate so fruitfully together with Turkey on those issues. And the cooperation between us, the EU and Turkey, from our point of view, has been a significant success. The programming of an additional 3 billion euros is underway, taking into account new challenges such as border and migration management. And as regards of the return of Syrian refugees from Turkey to Syria, we are happy to notice Turkey's continuous commitment towards the criteria defined by the UNHCR, and that is that return can only be voluntary, safe, and in dignity. Germany and the EU will, of course, also remain major humanitarian donors for Syria, including the Northwest, in view of the upcoming 6th pledging conference in Brussels that is going to be held quite soon. Another important issue of our cooperation is our joint customs union, EU-Turkey customs union, and the efforts to modernize that very customs union. I think that the customs union has been overall a great success over the last decades, but many would argue that it needs to be modernized, and Germany would agree with that assessment, in general at least. When I talk to German companies here in Turkey, I certainly hear very often that they feel the strong need to modernize that customs union fast. and comprehensively. So Germany is generally very much in favor of starting negotiations on a customs union, but at the same time we also have to see that to start with that, first of all, a conducive environment for these negotiations needs to be established. And there are two things that I think are still a little bit in the way of the start of those negotiations, and some of the EU member states are particularly critical for those two reasons. First is that we need to make more progress on overcoming some trade irritants in the existing customs union, and the second is that the existing customs union needs to be applied to all EU member states. And if we can overcome these two issues, then I'm pretty confident that we can make good progress on the start of the negotiations of the customs union. A last point, we have a lot of high-level dialogues, particularly since last fall, which is very positive. Don't want to go into the details of that, but we would like to see more of those. And a last point I would not want to forget to mention is, of course, Turkey's ratification of the Paris Climate Accord. And that, from our point of view, is also very welcome, and we hope that our joint endeavor to fight climate change can also lead to more and new ways of cooperating between the European Union and Turkey. We would very much welcome that. And as I don't want to be too long, just maybe a last word on one issue I'm sure my friend Farooq is going to mention, and that's the perspective of accession. Because every time we meet, Farooq tells me that this is among the most important things, the perspective of Turkey's accession. And let me first of all say that we very much welcome that, and also Turkey's continuous commitment to that. But without going into details, I would just offer a very short comment, and that is that from our perspective, the speed and the scope of progress in that area lies first and foremost in Turkey's hands. And this is something that is also part of the truth that we would like to encourage Turkey to come closer to the EU standards in fields like rule of law and human rights. This is one of the reasons why the accession talks have not made any progress in the last years. And the second point that is also very important is, of course, to have good bilateral relationships with all EU member states. And good bilateral relations can help, like, let's say, in the case of Germany. I think our very close, intense bilateral relations sometimes also help to make progress in the EU. But of course, it cannot only extend to some member states, it needs to cover all EU member states, particularly those neighbors in the region, and it's no secret that this is also still an obstacle why we do not make more progress on that front. Now, with the view to the time, I do not want to extend my time too much, and I thank you for your attention, and I'm really looking forward to our discussion, and first of all, of course, to start with the remarks by my good friend Farooq. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Schulz, for your valuable words and your fruitful input. You mentioned the importance of actors of Turkey and also how the revision of the customs union necessary in order to improve relations. Also Turkey's roles in terms of security and the migration problem, also how Turkey play a crucial role again. I think that's just a small addition in order to create effective strategic compass. Maybe still European Union needs the power and energy of Turkey. But the main and vital point, of course, as we mentioned together, accession of Turkey to the European Union, because we never feel that European Union just an economic integration form or just a free trade area or economic benefits, but wholeheartedly Turkey believe this way and feel itself as a part of European family. So we hope that together we find a common ground to solve our problems together. And now maybe our ambassador, Faruk Kaymakçı, can tell us some vital points related with this process. Now floor is yours, dear ambassador. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sinem Hanım. Dear Ambassador Schulz, dear Jürgen, dear ambassadors, sevgili Walter, Professor Alkan, I would like to greet all of you. First of all, of course, let me congratulate the Konrad Adenauer Foundation for the excellent work that they have been conducting in the last 20 years. I heard that you trained 20,000 people about the EU. I guess you were trying to teach them how the EU is complicated and how the Turkish membership is impossible. But it seems it has backfired. Now, the more they know the EU, I think the more they push for the EU membership. So I was actually preparing my muscles to hit Jürgen when he referred Turkey as a neighbor, as a strategic partner, which is true, but as a candidate country, the first thing that we would like to hear is a candidate country. I think one of the reasons why, the reform process in Turkey has slowed down, it is because of the fact that the EU has weakened Turkey's accession perspective. So it is like a chicken-egg situation. Of course, we can blame Turkey for not doing the necessary reforms, but at the same time, we can blame the EU side that the EU has not displayed a serious anchorship towards the candidate Turkey. So we have this anchor credibility dilemma. We have broken this anchor credibility dilemma in our history few times. One was 1999, when we declared Turkey as a candidate country. And you see, from 1999 up to 2006, what Turkey did in order to start the accession negotiations, called silent revolution by our friends in different European capitals. And that Turkey has made 8 reform packages, which also enabled Turkey to triple its GDP from 3,500 up to 2,000, up to $11,000 per head. So this is why I strongly underline that the accession perspective is the key. It doesn't matter, whether we become a member of the EU at the end, but let's stick to our deal, which is an accession negotiation, open-ended, and when Turkey fulfills the membership criteria, at the end of the negotiations, we can decide what we should do. So this is important. The accession perspective is important. Why it is important? Because for us, it is a question of belonging. You have seen many of your students, when they were asked what they really expect from the EU membership, most of the things that I heard is related to Copenhagen political criteria. It is not, only about economy, visa, but mostly, and I also ask these questions to my, audience when I have surveys. Most of the people expect, a stronger democracy, better respect of rule of law, and more rights and freedoms. So if we really believe in these values, then we should keep, our deal strong, and we should encourage Turkey towards accession. And this is an important element. Recent developments, I was talking about, of course, the different opportunities which emerged. One was Helsinki spirit, which revitalized, Turkey's accession, which, let's say, started Turkey's accession process. Then in 2016, when we had the migration crisis, thanks to the 18 March statement, which includes not only migration, by the way, it includes accession, customs union update, high-level dialogue meetings, counter-terrorism, visa liberalization, and customs union. So altogether, we had revitalized our relations towards accession. But unfortunately, 15th of July 2016 FETÖ coup attempt created difficulties and brought us to the point where we are now. Again, it seems that there is a good opportunity now, unfortunately because of a war. This Russian war against Ukraine, I think, clearly demonstrated that Turkey is a key, player in Europe in terms of European security and defense. This aggression also, I think, underlined the importance of energy security for Europe. As you might know, we have one of the 4 main arteries of European gas lines, which is basically Southern Gas Corridor with Trans-Anatolian Pipeline and Trans-Adriatic Pipeline. So now we need to maybe work closely on different energy sources, including Eastern Mediterranean gas. Why not to have Eastern Mediterranean gas from the island of Cyprus, from Israel, Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, and connect this gas to Southern Gas Corridor, which is functioning at its, 25% capacity. We still have, 32 billion cubic meters of capacity that can be utilized. So this is an important, again, trigger in our relations. Maybe Jürgen mentioned migration. Migration issue now became, I think, the most sensitive issue. In addition to 3.7 million Syrians in Turkey and 500,000 other Asians, let's say 4.2 million people in Turkey, and now probably more than 3.6 million Ukrainians all over Europe. The migration issue is a serious issue, and this cannot be managed only by offering financial facility to those, hosting countries. We need to manage migration together, and Turkey and Germany actually are the, the most burden taker of Europe. If you look at the number of people hosted in our countries, you see what I mean. So I believe that now we have again an opportunity to revitalize Turkey-EU relations, but towards accession. Without accession perspective, I do not believe that our cooperation will be fully utilized, because accession perspective means trust, accession perspective means commitment. Otherwise, we will try to have transactional relations, which will not, give us the full potential of membership process and the membership itself at the end. So I think I will stop here. I believe that I have been sufficiently provocative for some questions and comments. And I will be happy to take some questions there, maybe.
Thank you very much. And our ambassador emphasized for us the importance of accession vision again, how it's important. Also belief and mutual trust. Belief and trust is everything in every relationship. And focusing on the both sides, I think that should focus on common grounds, common interests, and we should revitalize again Turkey-EU relations together, and may find to create another world maybe together, because otherwise I'm not sure about that. For example, again strategic compass, but how it's possible for European Union to be more effective player in regions, again in Eastern Mediterranean, and also getting energy sources without Turkey, or playing role in Caucasus region or the Eastern Partnership countries, or other parts of the world, nearly 20 years, when we look after the wars and conflicts, civil wars, all these wars related with our geography and so our neighbor regions. So I think that European Union also should improve its vision related with Turkey's position and the possible roles of this country. On the other side, of course, with accession vision and commitments, Turkey also improve its capacity and should develop its efforts in order to be a part of the European Union. Together, we hope that it's possible. Now, I want to open the floor to your questions and discuss maybe these issues together. And for both participants and our precious students, please don't feel shy and ask your questions to our ambassadors. Yes, the floor is yours, our participants and our students. Yes, please. First of all, please introduce you shortly, your name and your institution.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm coming from Hacettepe University. My name is Ahmet Arataş Kireç. My question is to Mr. Schulz. As you know, there's an anti-Muslim sentiment in the West. And as you know, our country is mostly comprised of the people who are in the religion of Islam. My question is, to which extent the global problem of Islamophobia affects the United European Union decision-making process when it comes to the relation of Turkey and European Union? Thank you.
I hope this works. Yes. Thank you for your question. Well, first of all, you say there's an anti-Muslim sentiment in the West, and I would first of all strongly suggest to modify that hypothesis, because not everybody is anti-Muslim in the West. Why should that be the case? There are maybe a few people who are like this, but then there are also other people who are anti-Christian in the West and have other problems with other religions in the West. So I would not like to generalize that statement and talk about an anti-Muslim feeling in the West. I think what is important is that nobody is discriminated against for religious beliefs, for other opinions, for gender issues, or any other things. And everybody should have the right to exercise their religion to the extent they want. And I can only speak about my own country, and I can tell you in Germany there's certainly not a general anti-Muslim stance or feeling in Germany. There are some incidents, yes, unfortunately, where also Muslims are being attacked or being insulted. That's very bad. And when it comes to criminal offenses, our authorities take all the measures they can to protect those people and to prevent other events of that kind. But again, I think one has to look very closely to what the situation is. For example, before I left for New York, my previous posting to Ankara, I've been living 16 years in Berlin Friedrichshain, which is close to Kreuzberg. And this is the part of Berlin where the highest percentage of Muslims is living in Berlin. And I can tell you that day-to-day living together is absolutely no problem in Berlin. And sometimes there are issues, as there are issues between some Germans, between maybe some Hindus and other people. And yes, unfortunately, sometimes that also affects Muslims. But I would really like to suggest that this generalization to talk about Islamophobia as a general phenomenon that drives European politics, that's certainly not the case. And that certainly does not drive European decision-making processes. That is certainly something that is not the case. Let's not forget we have a lot of European countries, France and others included, that have also huge parts of their population that is of Muslim belief. And that in itself, I think, is not an issue at all. It only is a political issue when this then may not be in line with the national laws of certain EU member states. But again, my basic tenet would be there's no general Islamophobia in Europe.
Thank you.
Can I also add a few things on this? Of course, I don't think we should never ever generalize. I mean, this is the most important thing. Of course, in principle and in theory, we should focus on universal values, which means we have to respect all beliefs, and this should be also the general understanding, you know, everywhere in Europe, including the EU and Turkey. But at the same time, there are some prejudices, you know, both, you know, in Turkey, but also in other European countries, and we need to work on these prejudices together. So, for example, when I ask people why the Turkish accession has been delayed or, you know, taken so long, one of the reasons is that Turkey is the only member state, you know, on the candidate country, predominantly, you know, Muslim-populated nation. So we have this fact, but at the same time, when I ask the Turks, you know, what are you afraid in the EU? Some people think that we will lose our religion and we will lose our tradition if we join, when we join the EU. So this is a concern that we have to address together, but I think there we need a joint communication, because as long as we continue to call terrorist organizations as Islamist, you know, then, you know, we have an issue. Then this doesn't help us. Maybe, of course, they might be influenced for radical Islam, whatever, but as long as we name them, you know, easily without thinking, this creates, you know, I think, walls between different societies of Europe.
If there is no question from the hall, then we can maybe take first of all, then I can take online questions, please. Yes, please.
Thank you. My name is Burak Çeliklek. I'm coming from Ankara Hacı Bayram Veli University, and I'm senior student in International Relations Department. I would like to ask a question to Mr. Schulz. You know, some of the European states make statement about Ukraine to join the European Union. I want to ask, is it about just solidarity between European Union states, or do you actually think Ukraine provide all of the European Union membership criteria? Thank you.
Well, thank you for that question. Well, Ukraine has applied for membership, as you know, in the course of this terrible war. But I can assure you that membership, and I don't need to say this to this particular audience here in Turkey, membership is a complicated process that is basically determined by in Europe we call the acquis, the totality of EU norms and standards. And if you want to become a member of the European Union, then you simply have to very gradually come closer to those standards. And Ukraine is without any question, looking at the map, you know, part of the House of Europe, if I can put it like this, and part of European history. There's no question about that. But the membership process is a very different issue. So this is being discussed, but in the European Union, it is very clear that there is no shortcut way to EU membership, and that even applies in this very, very sad moment even for Ukraine.
Thank you. Please, yes, please, you.
Thank you very much. My name is Kerem Öztürk. I'm a fourth-year international relations student from Middle East University. My question is actually to both to Mr. Faruk Kaymakçı and both to Mr. Schulz. I would like to ask about let's say that Turkey has met the standards that has been set by the European Union for full membership. We are still facing a problem about Turkey's population, which is nearly around 85 million, which sets the fact about the number of Turkish citizens in the European Parliament, which makes Turkey the second largest population in the European Parliament. What does the dear ambassadors here think about this issue? Would the EU want presence of a country who would have so many members in the parliament, as Turkey being a really characteristic one in besides the members? Thank you.
Okay. First of all, you know, when we have Turkish members of the European Parliament, they will sit in a political group. It doesn't mean that, you know, the Turkish socialists will vote together with Turkish conservatives or Turkish liberals or Greens or others. So they will be members of the European Parliament. So actually the number of seats in the European Parliament would not be an issue, you know, in terms of Turkey's size and Turkey's weight in the EU decision-making mechanism. Actually, Germany gets less than, you know, what they should normally have. Because if you have, what is the population of Germany today? What do you say? Okay, so we are more or less the same. But for 82 million, actually Germany should get more. And actually for less than, you know, okay, for a bit more than 500,000, Malta should get less. But it doesn't work in that sense. So what is important is the weight in the council. And also, I mean, more or less every country will get a commissioner if the system doesn't change. Here, what is important is that whether the country is in line with the EU system. So this is what is important. And I am sure an EU member, Turkey, will be a big asset in terms of pushing Turkey for an active foreign policy, for an active energy security policy, for an active defense policy, and also in terms of economic and, you know, trade might. I think Turkey will be an asset. So, but it is true, some big member states are jealous of the fact that Turkey will share the same competences with them when Turkey becomes a member of the EU. I think this is one of the reasons of one or two member states not to be very warm about Turkish membership. But at the same time, let's not forget that EU is composed mostly by medium and small sized, you know, member states. And if Germany's bigness, if France's bigness is not an issue, why Turkey's bigness in terms of weight and, you know, representation in the EU institutions should be a problem?
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add. I think your question to the European Parliament aspect of it is a kind of secondary or tertiary issue. And I think the real question is, of course, about the size of Turkey that you were asking, and Deputy Minister has already alluded to that. I would say when the candidate status to Turkey was granted by the European Union, Turkey did not have as many people as it has today. But even at that point, Turkey was a very important, huge country with a very sizable population. So that is not something that has changed in the process of accession talks. So this should not be the decisive issue in that process.
But demography will be an issue for Europe. So we should not be afraid of, you know, big countries, because we will need them to challenge, you know, maybe Russia.
Regarding migration, how do you see the next policies will be of Turkey and European Union regarding existing refugees in Turkey from Syria and Afghanistan? Do you think that the new EU-Turkey deal will come, or what will be the next policies of Turkey, and what will be the stance of European Union regarding the existing refugees coming from Syria and Afghanistan in Turkey? Thank you.
To who?
Okay. Shall I go into details of migration deal? Very briefly. 2 promises by Turkey: prevention and taking back from the Greek islands. We kept our promises. 4 promises by the EU, basically taking 1 Syrian for 1 person that we receive from the Greek islands, EU kept its promise fully, even 10 times, you know. Then we have 3 + 3, 6 billion euros to be mobilized by 2018. So we spent 4.2 billion so far, but the number is increasing, the number of refugees is increasing, and we need to accelerate this funding. Third, voluntary humanitarian admission scheme. Myself, I negotiated with the EU. Normally, EU member states, you know, were supposed to take Syrians from Turkey voluntarily, around 54,000 per year, but this has been blocked by few member states. So Germany has taken, I don't know, more than 1 million since 2015, but others, you know, they are not committed, you know, themselves to take people. The last pledge by the EU is cooperation in northern Syria, Article 9 of 18 March statement, you know, whereby Turkey, member states, and the EU should make joint endeavors to create better living conditions and to enable safe returns. Here, EU did nothing with us, and EU blamed us, you know, for our operations in northern Syria, thinking that we are killing innocent Kurds, we are trying to change the demography, we are creating more, we would create more irregular migration because of these operations, but at the end, nothing, you know, in this sense happened. So thanks to this operation, as of today, 493,000 people have gone back to their houses and to their villages. We don't have any more irregular migration from Idlib or from northern Syria. Actually, we have prevented probably more than 2 million Syrians, you know, additional ones, I mean, towards Turkey and the rest of Europe. So currently, this deal is not functioning fully because, meanwhile, Greece declared Turkey a non-safe country for not to return, you know, the Turkish citizens to Turkey. And also, this is not in line with the 18 March statement because Turkey is a safe country for everyone, and the 18 March statement was signed under this deal. So, plus Greece, you know, continues with its pushbacks, which is also illegal by international law, but also by 18 March statement, because it was enshrined in the 18 March statement that pushbacks have to be stopped, but they are continuing. Plus, Greece and Greek Cypriots are abusing their veto right in the EU against Turkey as a candidate country in all areas, from you know, customs union update to migration, from security and defense policy to energy cooperation. So this is the picture, and this is why Turkey stopped receiving any people from the Greek islands. So that part of the agreement is in suspension, but EU still continues to support Syrians in Turkey. The EU has provided a third 3 billion euros, which will be you know, spent for Syrians in Turkey. This money is not given to Turkey. So what we are saying from now on, we have to do 3 things, 3 additional things, in addition to what we have been doing since 2016. First, let's increase our cooperation in northern Syria. Our priority is help those Syrians who would like to go back, you know, voluntarily, in a dignified manner, and, you know, in a safe manner. So we should help them to return. This is our priority. But the EU says the financial assistance that is provided for Syrians include only Turkey, not beyond Turkey. So we have to change FRIT, Facility for Refugees in Turkey, to, you know, a general facility that can be used also in northern Syria. Second important area of cooperation is that we should focus on Turkey's eastern borders. Unfortunately, I don't like the walls, but nevertheless, we have to take some actions on the Turkish-Iranian border, which see every year more than 150,000, mostly Afghans, coming towards Turkey. So we are asking the EU also to cooperate with Turkey in this sense. The third policy, which is a rather long-term policy, we should work together in source countries. We should work together in Afghanistan, for example, to run the airports, to run the dams, to generate electricity. We should work in northern Syria with their return, but also with their livelihoods. We should work in North Africa, for example, in Libya, with the Coast Guard training. And we need to manage migration together. So we are talking about a joint management. Otherwise, okay, we will give, so-called some money to Turkey. By the way, this money is not given to Turkey. It is not coming into our pockets. It goes directly to the Syrians. Of course, some of the line ministries are parts of the projects, but they spend more than what they receive from the EU. So this is what we want to see in the future in terms of migration management.
Let me just say only a very few things. I don't want to go into the technicalities of the 18th of March 2016 statement. Our interpretation would be a little bit different. We would certainly hold that we are honoring our commitments, but it is true that certain things could not be implemented exactly the way it was foreseen. Since things changed after March 2016, things changed in Syria in a very significant way, and that made it indeed for the EU in parts more difficult to cooperate on certain issues, cooperation projects that were foreseen. But that does not mean that, from our point of view, that the entire agreement is dysfunctional. I think the basic points of the agreement work relatively well. You have said that Turkey has suspended taking migrants from Greece. Of course, we have said we would like to see that resumed. There are a couple of other things. I would like to underline that if you take, and I agree that we need to manage migration together. This, I think we have, this is in our mutual interest. That's a basic assumption, and I think that's the point of departure for this entire cooperation. And if I take it all together, what the EU has committed to assistance to Turkey, we had 3 + 3, 6 billion euros in the 2016 statement. We have now, last June, we had another council where we committed another 3 billion euros. There are some other funds that are also used to support Turkey in that regard. So altogether, we are talking round about some 10 billion euros. And that is for a candidate country unprecedented. The EU has never taken so much money into its hands to support any other partner country, candidate country in terms of migration that significantly. And yes, you're right, the money doesn't go to Turkish authorities directly in most cases. But of course, the EU is also very careful to spend and invest the money together with implementation partners in a way that Syrian refugees benefit from that, but also that Turkish host communities are benefiting from that too. And last point, I think the fact that these 10 billion euros have been committed by the European Union to assist the refugee situation in Turkey also shows that that there is not one single EU member state that is blocking everything on cooperation. I think this is quite some serious cooperation. There are other serious forms of cooperation. So I cannot quite agree with your assessment that everything is blocked. And I also cannot quite agree with your assessment that it is always one member state that is blocking Turkey's aspirations. That is actually not true.
It is.
It's not. It is not. It is simply not true. And the truth is there are several member states who have several problems with several issues. And it's sometimes one country, it's sometimes two countries, sometimes 5, it's sometimes 10. Who's blocked? Why are we not making progress on the modernization of the customs union? Because of one country, as you are just telling me? No, that's wrong. That's just not, sorry, that's not the case. There are a couple of member states who, for different reasons, have different issues and say for different reasons they don't want to go the next step and they don't want to start yet these negotiations on modernization of the customs. It's not just one country, much more complex. I would, if I could give one recommendation to Turkey, I would recommend to the Turkish government to focus much more on those countries who have these hesitations and who in the end create maybe obstacles in further progress on certain issues, because that is something I think that is maybe lacking. But again, it's not just one country.
So I think I need to use my right of reply. So you are saying that so far has been, everything good, and the member states did not abuse their veto right and EU membership solidarity? So what is Greece and Greek Cypriots are doing?
First of all, there is no abuse of veto rights. There is no, the EU, I think you compare the EU to the United Nations Security Council.
No,
where there are 5, you talk about veto rights, and there's no veto right. There's no veto right. You know it very well. And I don't need to tell you about the EU treaties. There's no veto right in the EU treaties foreseen. It doesn't exist. What happens is that if you want to get to a decision, you need consensus. That's something very different. You need consensus by 27 member states.
But who blocked consensus?
Many member states on different issues, various groups of EU member states block certain decisions because they have problems with this. Yes.
But we have problems, and what we are saying, we should solve these problems bilaterally and in line with the international law. We are saying that don't Europeanize every single issue. It is not the EU which will solve the problems at the Aegean Sea. It is not the EU which will solve the Cyprus problem. So this is what we have been saying. Of course, we are diplomats, we know what it means, consensus and veto. They are different terms, but at the end, it comes to the same conclusion. My 8 chapters have been blocked by the Greek Cypriots. My 5 chapters have been unilaterally blocked, or vetoed, if you like, by the Greek Cypriots not to open. My 35 chapters to be closed are blocked by the Greek Cypriots alone. Your sanctions against Belarus, for example, were blocked only by Greek Cypriots because they were upset with the EU that EU did not have tougher sanctions against Turkey. So this is what I mean. And we are saying that we are creating a vicious cycle in which we will never be able to solve any problem. And this is why the EU should act, a little bit fairly. I'm not expecting full fairness because you have to have, club solidarity, membership solidarity, that is understandable, but show the same understanding that we have seen in the case of Croatia and Slovenia. EU did not, encourage Slovenia to abuse their veto right against candidate Croatia. EU encouraged both sides to have a bilateral settlement. Same thing for Kosovo and, Serbia. EU tells both sides that you have to solve your problem before you join the club. So this is what we are expecting. And you know that in 2004, it was the EU who pushed for the Annan Plan. Encouraged both sides before the Greek Cypriots joined the EU, and we had this referendum. After the referendum, it was your compatriot Verheugen who said that he was cheated by the government of Republic of Cyprus during this whole process. So now, and also we know that Greece used its veto right again to block the membership of 9 other candidate countries if the Greek Cypriots would not, would not be taken into the EU. So this is what we say. It doesn't help when the EU makes a statement that EU is in full solidarity with Greece and with Greek Cypriot in terms of their territorial waters, their exclusive economic zone, their continental shelf. It complicates the issue. It spoils the Greek and Greek Cypriots, and they will never ever negotiate if you give them this feeling of upper hand against the candidate country. And this is why we are saying the EU should encourage both sides. Okay, show some solidarity, understandable. I mean, sorry, I did 2 master's degree in EU decision making from quite reputed schools. I know, how the EU decision making mechanism functions. We are not naive. We know that we should have good neighborly relations before we join the EU. But at the same time, EU should help us in this sense. EU should not complicate the situation. That's what I wanted to say.
I don't want to prolong this indefinitely, but let me make 2 final remarks on this. First of all, I think it shows that this is a very constructive discussion among friends, that Farouk only after 90 minutes comes to 2004. Usually this happens much earlier in the discussion, so this I think is a good sign. Secondly, on the veto, once again, and this is a very serious point, Turkish accession to the EU is a complicated issue. We could talk about that for a long time, but to simply reduce it to 1 member state is not reflecting but that's what you kind of fear for the time being. But I'm telling you, even in Germany, it is a controversial issue. There are some parties who favor this, others say, is that the right thing? So it's a very complicated, comprehensive challenge that is one of the most difficult political issues. So again, it is not just 1 member state that is blocking this. That's all I want. And here I stop.
Yes, please.
Speak. Okay. Thank you so much. So my name is Oğuzhan Çiçek, and I act as an editor-in-chief of the FIES Journal, and also I study international relations at Gazi University as a senior student. So I want to direct my question to Mr. Schulz, actually. So do you personally feel that the approach of the European Union for refugees coming from Ukraine and Syria are the same? So actually, I want to ask this question personally. So what do you think as a person? Because we all know that the refugee issue acts as an important role between the EU and the Turkey relations. Thank you.
Well, obviously you cannot compare the situation 100%. There are some differences, but what I would like to say is, I can only speak for my country, of course, when in 2015 Germany welcomed more than 1 million of Syrian refugees when they were in need, and that was something that the broad majority of Germans very much welcomed. And now we have a new situation where refugees, migrants from Ukraine come to Europe, and it's a little bit different because it's not the highest number of refugees that's coming to Germany now. But again, in Germany we have now, as we speak today, some 250,000 Ukrainians who already came to Germany. The number is probably higher because these are the registered refugees in Germany. And again, they're very much welcome because this is an emergency crisis. This is an incredible threat to those people. But I also have to say that many other EU countries that were maybe a little bit more hesitant to welcome refugees in 2015 now are in the forefront of welcoming Ukrainian refugees. I mean, in Poland you have more than 2 million refugees already by now. Look at Romania, Hungary, Slovakia. So the number of Ukrainian refugees that have already arrived in Europe is more than 3 million people, and we're only talking about the first month, first in brackets. But this is after 4 weeks of the war. More than 3 million Ukrainians have arrived in Europe, and my fear is, you asked for personal assessment, is that this war is far from being over. This could go on and on and on. This is my great fear, and we all worked, again, we are together with Turkey, we all try to work towards a ceasefire as fast as possible, but my fear is that this will go on for some time. And that, of course, also means that maybe the first 3 million people from Ukraine who came in the first months, that number may be much higher as the war drags on. So this is one of the biggest challenges we are facing now. And if I'm right, I hope I'm wrong, but if I'm right that this goes on and on, this issue will be one of the key issues for Europe to solve in the next months.
Yes, please, now.
My name is Oğuz Polat Balcı, and I'm a fourth-year law faculty member of Başkent University. And I would like to point this question towards both Ambassador Kaymakçı and Ambassador Schulz. Considering the general European view of Turkey throughout the history and today, and the fact that a very big portion of EU's population is Christian, and nearly all of Turkey's population being Muslim, and many cultural differences between Europe and Turkey being a member candidate since 1999, and this candidateship procuring no clear result for nearly 23 years. Is European Union membership of Turkey realistic? Thank you.
Okay, I can start. Let me answer like this. The fact that you pointed out that Turkey is obviously predominantly Muslim and that let's say the majority of the current EU member states are predominantly Christian, I think that is not the decisive issue to decide to answer your question. We, as you are aware, in Germany, a predominantly Christian country, if you want, we have more than 3 million people with roots in Turkey today. That is not a problem for anybody. We talked about this issue before. Yes, there are some issues, but in general, this is not a problem. So living together is possible, and the number of Muslims in Germany is actually much higher. Take the million of Syrians, take the Moroccans, Algerians, Tunisians, Africans. So we're talking about more than 5 million Muslims in Germany today. That is not a problem per se at all. So I think that this question that you asked, I see the relevance of that, but I think it is not the answer to your question related to the accession of Turkey.
I always say, Turkish accession case is the most complicated, most difficult, most challenged, but when it happens, it will be the most useful, most meaningful accession. So, is it realistic? In my view, yes. We are a negotiating candidate country. In my view, there are 5 parameters which will determine Turkey's membership. Although, I think Jürgen also partly agrees with me on this. The question of religion is not, the most important, I would say, factor, but it is one of the factors. I mentioned there are 3 specific issues related to Turkey only as a candidate country. Too big, too poor, and Muslim. This is there. When I was younger like yourself, when I went to study, in France, in the UK, I thought that, the religion would not be an issue. We put our beliefs beyond and behind. We have our own secular lives, but it comes, in the minds of people. We have also prejudices as Turks, but also other Europeans. They have prejudices against us. So we will not change our religion. We have no intention of changing other religions. So the best thing is respect all beliefs. Question of bigness, we discussed. This can be an asset, but for the time being, it might be a complication. Question of too poor, it's not a question of GDP, but it's a question of, the structure of the Turkish economy. Still, agriculture plays a key role. Still, we have, important factors, important disparities
of income between regions of Turkey. If Turkey joins the EU today, I think we should get at least 15 billion euros of grants from the EU budget through common agricultural policy, through cohesion policy, for our farmers and for our regions. So this is not realistic. It will cost a lot to the EU. But these three things can be handled because we are making progress. I think it will not be a big issue. Two more issues related to membership. Good neighborly relations, as Jürgen mentioned. There, we are doing our best. We have no intention of invading or attacking any of our neighbors. We want a meaningful, lasting solution in Cyprus. We want a solution about the Aegean in our relations with Greece. There, the EU should not play with this, or some of the member states should not use these issues between Turkey and Greece, or between Turkish and Greek Cypriots against, our process. The other issue, if you ask my opinion, which will be the most important and the most, determining factor, it's Copenhagen political criteria. When Turkey fulfills Copenhagen political criteria and have, same standards of other Council of Europe members in terms of democracy, rule of law, human rights, freedoms and rights, I don't think that, Cyprus issue and other issues can be a serious problem in our accession process. So these 5 factors will determine, is it realistic? Yes. Is it difficult? Yes. Is it possible? Yes, it's possible. But it will be the certificates, the students of Konrad Adenauer who will take this process, forward.
Please.
Hello, my name is Nihal, and I'm coming from the Ankara Hacı Bayram Veli University International Relations Department. My question is about the Russian war in Ukraine, actually. As we all know, Turkey has a very sensitive perspective on Russian war in Ukraine because Turkey has them both as its close allies in the region, and there exists a mutual dependency, just like how EU has mutual dependency with both of these countries. As far as we see, the EU is okay with Turkey's relatively neutral and neutral stance in its negotiating attempts. Would you consider this as a long-standing perspective, or as the war continues, because we guess it's going to continue for like a long time, would the EU demand from Turkey to show harsh stance against Russia? Thank you.
Will you ask?
Well, first of all, I think I answered this a little bit when I started with my statement, but let me say again, I think first of all, the point of departure here is that I think the EU's position and Turkey's position in principle is quite similar. I mean, the EU and Turkey both have condemned the Russian aggression against Ukraine in very clear terms. The EU and Turkey have both clearly underlined the importance of the principles of the United Nations Charter and the OSCE. The EU and Turkey have both underlined the importance of the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Turkey, and that several times. So I think in general, Turkey and the EU are on the same page when it comes to this basic view of the aggression. Now, of course, the European Union has decided to bring about some unprecedented measures and sanctions, and there Turkey sees things in a bit of a different way. We feel that these sanctions are very important, and we would like Turkey to encourage Turkey to consider aligning itself with these sanctions. But again, more importantly is that we work in the same direction in the United Nations. In general, politically, Turkey is trying to work behind the scenes on diplomatic solutions. So are we. We condemn these in resolutions of the United Nations, and that's very important that we send the right signals. And the most important thing is that we keep side by side as long as this war goes on.
Turkey is on the side of international law, on the side of NATO, and on the side of West. I think there should be no doubt about this. In terms of, sanctions, of course, the EU has taken probably the most detrimental sanctions so far in its history, and we have also taken our actions. As Jürgen mentioned, Turkey condemns, this unjustified war, unprovoked war against Ukraine, and we fully support territorial integrity, unity, and sovereignty of Ukraine, including Crimea. So our position is the same. But I don't know whether I should say fortunately or unfortunately. Maybe I should say unfortunately. Unfortunately, because of the conditions which pushed us into this peculiar situation today, because if we had been a member of the EU, I think our position would have been different. If Turkey's accession process had been, progressive, our position would have been different. But today, and I also claim that because of the division in transatlantic relations, in NATO, in Europe, Russia felt so comfortable to start this unprovoked war. Because Russia's, I think Russian Putin has seen clearly that there is no strong front when it comes to Europe, when it comes to NATO. So this is, I think, one of the reasons why Russia so easily attacked, Ukraine. But in any case, in terms of sanctions, of course, we fully supported NATO actions. We would like to have more coordination with the EU. Unfortunately, EU is only inviting Turkey to join the statements, to join the sanctions, only in the last minute. I think the best thing is to have better coordination and cooperation, and I am sure we can find also tailor-made measures that we can jointly take, if necessary, to stop this barbaric, aggression and to bring, ceasefire and peace. But already we have been doing a lot in terms of facilitation of the negotiations and also, implementing strictly the Montreux Convention, which is also an important factor, I think, on the evaluation of the war. Then we have our own sanctions that we implement, but for joint actions, I think we need more coordination and we need more talks so that we can have some tailor-made measures if necessary.
At this point, the question from YouTube, online question, closely related with this one, because you mentioned how important coordination and also sanctions and give a voice together and solidarity against this issue. So what are your predictions about the European Union process at this term? Will the Russia-Ukraine war strengthen the European Union-Turkey relations, asks Associate Professor Fahri Özsungur from Mersin University. Is there an option for Turkey? Maybe it is the last question for you. Is there an option for Turkey-European Union relations in terms of Ukrainian war? Do you feel any strengthened effect, or what are your future prospects?
Very quickly, yeah, as I mentioned, we had three interesting, times. One was Helsinki 99 and March 2016. So I believe that there is still a good opportunity now because of this war, because I think it encourages Turkey and the EU side to have more dialogue, more engagement, starting from security and defense policy, again, energy security, plus migration, because now migration becomes more and more. But again, at the same time, if we can accelerate our political reforms, I am sure it will have positive impact on our relations and also on the accession process.
Thank you very much. And Ambassador Schulz, do you want to say something?
Sure, thank you. Will this war strengthen the European Union-Turkey relations? I think there is no easy yes or no to that, but I think the option is there because this war leads to a lot of tectonic changes when it comes to security. Security in Europe at large, security in the world, international relations. This war changes a lot, and I think we have to review many things and ask ourselves which conclusions can we draw from this. Do we need to think more strategically in certain areas, and is that maybe an opportunity to also come up with some more constructive relations in here or there? And maybe if that would be the outcome of this, maybe the answer in the end could be yes, but this needs to be worked on, and I think it's a bit too premature to answer this now.
Yes, thank you. As you mentioned, now we are living in a transition time in international relations. The security structure changed, everything changed. So we should maybe change picture together. It is the reason why Konrad Adenauer Stiftung certificate programs so important, because the force of the students and the relations between lecturers and students, the power of people also important and part of this process. So together we can find a way to renew and change this picture, I think, together. So thank you very much for everyone, but first of all, let me say you that before our networking reception, we want to take a family photo together, group photo together. So I want to invite our participants, our guests to stage in order to take our family picture. Then we can go to networking reception together. Thank you very much for your participation.